Do you believe when people say the person who picks you up from the airport ultimately determines your life abroad? Have you ever been terrified about starting afresh abroad? Do you think that, oh my God, I have this uncle who people class as a failure and I don't want to be him? So you're nervous about moving abroad and you're older, maybe in your 30s with a family, you've got yourself a job or a study opportunity. There's no blueprint, there's no formula. We are just talking from experience. I'll talk about myself. I've been here for almost 20 years and I'm not making this video because I'm the most accomplished immigrant, far from it. But I have created this platform to respond to a lot of what you guys want to see from my past experiences and where I found myself today, which I'll say I have done okay for myself. So let's start. I know that there's always this uncle that you know who people refer to who has been maybe in the US, the UK since you were born, 30, 40 years, maybe never been back home, or there's like rumor that he's not got a place, he's struggling. There's always that person and we use those people as points of references to say, I don't want to go like this. It's sad, but it's the reality. And if you find out from this Uncle A, Uncle B, they did not do anything different or they did not believe that their lives will turn out the way they did. So there is a lot of sympathy when I see cases like that, because trust me, your life can change in a second. Anyway, I'm going to share today 8 things that I expect, or 8 tips to settle once you get into a new country. Do you believe when people say the person who picks you up from the airport ultimately determines your life abroad? Do you still believe that in 2024 or 2025? Well, partly I am somebody who has lived in that era where basically all you knew about abroad was word of mouth from phone calls or people visiting from the abroad back to you guys home, and most of everything that you did when you got here was based on what you were told, either at the airport or once you found yourself in a home of some relative who's kindly agreed to house you for a short time. I did that and I was lucky because the person who picked me up was my dear uncle, who is like a father figure, and he made my settling in a breeze. In fact, he was very instrumental to me coming to the UK as a 21-year-old student to do a postgrad. And he, we both looked from admission. He did most of the hard work, and of course he picked me up and drove me straight to a shop to make sure that I'm connected. He got me a SIM card because back then we did not have ways to call direct like you do now, so he was very instrumental. He said, get yourself a SIM, get connected. And back then, if you remember, you get a SIM and you needed an access number to call, and he said, be connected. He got me a SIM, got me a call card, and said, call your parents, let them know that you've arrived. I did, and you know who else I called? Yes, I had somebody already in the UK, so I was so excited to get here. But nowadays in 2024, there is a lot of information. In fact, you don't need to get to the airport to get surprised, because people in Africa nowadays tell me about towns in the UK I have never been to. They talk about the US like they've been there, because we've got the internet. We've got, people can browse, can watch videos. It feels like it's so infused. All over the world, it's like a global village now. Information travels really quicker, people are much more informed, and there's less naivety. So there's little or no excuse why you should not educate or get yourself to know certain things, and that's why I'm sharing this video. I'm sharing 8 points today of the things that I wish I knew when I got here. A lot of it I did, and that's maybe why I did not turn out so bad, even if I say so myself. And yes, I'm just trying to give back on the other things that I picked only after making a lot of mistakes. So why not? I don't want you guys to necessarily find yourself in this before you make this mistake. But if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you are about to relocate, you're very nervous, you don't know what to do. Let me start with the first point. And point 1 is, please make sure you have your non-negotiables. Yes, let me expatiate. Non-negotiables are the things that you will not trade off or ever do. Everybody has a different concept, right? That non-negotiable is just who you are. The things that you will not bend. It's like your integrity. The things that define you, that you hold close to your heart. And I'll give a good example. So people come here and immediately they reach the country, they know that they might never get involved in, say, dodgy business. That's a non-negotiable. So people decide that they might never want to be able to work out in the cold. I have a friend who came and said he's really big, well built, and I thought, you know, what have you thought about? And he said, one thing, sis, that I don't want to ever do is work as a bouncer. I've read this, that. I don't like what that could do to my health in the winter months, so I'd rather not be a bouncer or work, like security. And that was what his non-negotiable was. There's another example, please don't take this wrong, is I knew when I got here, because my orientation was my uncle, and he said the day I arrived, we drove from the airport straight to a phone shop, and this phone shop was owned by his friend, a fellow immigrant. And she said, oh, you've just come, are you looking to work? That's the first thing. I said, yes, I'm a student, but we're allowed to work, few hours. Then I think it was 15 or 18 hours or 20, I can't remember now. And she said, oh, there's this agency, a care agency, they're looking for people to start immediately. So I was like, oh yeah, I was quite excited. I did not do any research, I didn't know what that entailed, and I was back in the car. My uncle's like, oh yes, are you looking to work? I was like, yeah, of course. I had come with my first installment of my fees. When you have that initial £5,000 and you're thinking you're rich, although it's not yours, you look at it every day and thinking, great. You just go to the cash machine and you look and you think, yeah, I have money. Anyway, that's an aside. And he said, oh, that's good, think about what you want to do, but let me advise you. When I came here, and he had been here for a few years, that was what everybody said to me. And when I realized what it was, I said, oh, what do you mean? He said, well, looking after the elderly or people who are not able to do much. And very quickly I knew that I was not able, because it entailed very personal care. Like, he gave an example, I don't want to go into the details, and he said once he realized that he had to do that, with no disrespect, he knew that he could not do it for personal reasons. Once he told me this, I remember like yesterday, I was in the car. I said, oh, is that what it is? He said, can you? I said, I don't think. He said, then move on, the loads of jobs. I went home back then, I think it was Marks and Spencer, phone automated interviews. And I got a job the next day. He lived in a village, by the way, so it was easy. And I turned it down just because of my school schedule. It did not work for me. But at that point, he said that to me. I knew that I probably would not be able to do care. It doesn't mean that care work or care workers are not needed. In fact, they're an integral part of this country and the economy. And a lot of my other friends loved it, did it, and some of them still do it with a passion, because like everything else, you must love what you do. But that's an example of a non-negotiable. And have somebody else who's come and said, I don't want to work in an office like what you do, because I had a customer service job eventually, worked in a finance company when I was a student, part-time, and I said, oh, there are jobs going. And she said, no, I'm not interested in working in an environment where I have to answer phone calls. I don't even understand when these people talk to me. I cannot deal with the work environment, so please, I'd rather be in a care environment. I just love it. And she loved it. So each to theirs. Others think, when I get in, I don't want to stay in this country, so I'm going to work, do what I want to do maybe, and then leave. Others will come and say, my school is important. I'll work around it because I want to make sure my visa stays okay to stay longer. Those are all non-negotiables. It's your integrity. What do you want to define you? And please, just on this point, a lot of us set our bars so low that in fact we trip over it. Trust me, set your bar high. And my uncle, I can say this very unreservedly, that he, with his ambition and the person that I can say he mentored me, he has achieved so much, and that keeps breaking boundaries. So this is the kind of example where whoever picks you up determines exactly how you turn out. So set your non-negotiables very high from the onset, and have goals that you can tick off quarterly, monthly. We can go into that in another video if you guys want to see an example of what I'll use to mentor people who come here and ask for my help. The next thing I'll say is it's never too early to start building your credit. A lot of us did not really understand what it is to build credit. We just knew that don't take debt, don't take credit cards, you'll be in debt. So we shied away from that. And the other little things that I learned, for me, my credit life was like that. There were times I was up there, times I was down, mistakes I made. And the first thing I'll say is make sure that wherever you live, you have some sort of bill. Get a bill that you're actually paying, even if you're staying with family, which I'll always encourage you to till you get independent. Get a bill that has your name and your address, so that you can use that to open a bank account for a start. Do that immediately. It's It's also proof of address and many other things, but it gives you the liberty to start understanding finances and income. The other thing that I'll say that you should do almost immediately is get yourself registered on the voters registry, so that around where you live, it shows that you live there and you vote. That really helps with your credit rating. What is your credit rating? Back home we don't have that. It's just the profile that you build that will make you assess credit. It's the profile that you build that will make lenders find you credible to spend money and pay it back. So it's not just that I don't have any debt so I'm good. No, it's the habit that you have debt but you can pay it off. That's what makes you credit worthy. But there are other things like I've mentioned. And another thing on this point is when opening an account, open one account. For me, it's funny that the day I got here, the next day I went straight into the banks, and my bank account that I opened in 20 years ago is the same bank account that I use today. I've had a few others, but I've kept one because that gives me very good credibility that I have been consistent. You can trace my life. So if, let me just say this, don't, it's between us. If you think that, well, we have things like, I don't know how you guys call it, but that it's called in different ways, where you put money together like friends and one person takes the bulk. If you are in one of those, financial dealings, you can have another account that is maybe not as clean, but with your main account, keep it spanking clean. And on this point, still on being contactable, opening accounts, please have a provisional driving license. When I came and they said get a license, I did not understand. I thought, I'm not going to drive now. Get a provisional license because it's used as a form of ID, and it's just good to have it because it shows that you're legitimate in the country. I'm not very current with the immigration rules at the moment, but I know that having a provisional license just means when you get here, once you have a visa, you can have that. So get that first before anything happens with your visa situation. The third thing very close to this point about credit is don't go crazy on credit. Spoke now about, not being shy away from a credit card so that you can pay it off gradually. That's how you build your credit and you build it higher. But also on the same light, don't go crazy when you are thrown credit. It's not just a credit card. It's credit in every aspect. Car credit. Do you need a car that you be paying credit when you come into the country? I don't think so. My first car was shamefully, at the time, I think I bought it for £500 and I panicked. I'm like, 500? It's too expensive. People were laughing. And that car served me for 3 years. Honestly, it was a small car that suited what I needed it for. So don't go crazy on car credit, because if you build your credit, this is what I talked about, they'll throw credit at you. Even the stores, you walk into a store and they're offering you this, you go into like a departmental store that has access to all the designer gear, thinking, oh my god, I've seen that LV thing, I've seen that YSL thing, I want them, so I'll get this credit and I'll pay off every month. No, not that kind of credit. No, because those things entice you and then you get yourself in a kerfuffle, in my British slang, in a mess, and you will regret, why did I go? So be careful, because overuse of credit can ruin your credit. So till you have that kind of nice balance, don't go overboard, especially when you're just new to the country. Yeah, if you have a credit card, please make sure that you pay off any credit card that is 7% or more interest rate first every month. Don't mess about, because that will build up and they'll mess you up. So don't make that mistake. Just thought I'll add that. To follow up from this point, I'm just keeping it finance for the next point as well, is savings. Now let's talk a bit about money. I'm still waiting to see somebody who doesn't care about the finances. I don't know, but I do, and there was a point that I was giving financial advice. This, I want to disclaim that I'm no financial expert. I'm just saying based on experience. I'll say that savings is important. In our culture, for some reason, we like to have cash. We like to withdraw cash and maybe save. I'll advise you not to do that for many reasons. There's a very sad story that maybe I'll share at some point. I'm ready to. Somebody we knew, somebody we're very close to, who was living here and believed in that, an older woman. And when she passed on, she was left a lot of money and nobody knew what to do with it. Nobody knew about her family. And she was struggling while she was alive. If that money was in a savings account that was a high interest yielding savings account, we were told this, we did not listen. Go for one of those accounts where you're almost guaranteed you will make money from your savings. Your research online before you open. If you want my advice, write to me special and I'll tell you the best options. But I'll always say, like a rule of thumb, again, there's a 75-15-15 rule where people say that 75% is your daily or monthly upkeep, 15% is investment, 15% is savings. When you come, you cannot start investing. Let's scrap that. Let's just tear that. Poof. Let's talk about reality, right? I'll say 60-10-10-10. Now listen, 60% of what you spend a month should be things like your bills, like that includes like your rents, your phone, what you take to function, maybe even like your bills that are predicted, like your transport, most of that feeding. And then the other 10%, make sure that you use that to invest in yourself. When you just come, or when you're younger, invest in yourself. If I had invested in myself, if somebody told me this back then, I will not be, I'll be on a different level. Invest in yourself. When you that, because that's the only thing that's yours. You are only as valuable as what you own, what you have, what you can give, how you can add value. There's several ways. Think about courses. Don't be quick to just go and pay for them. There are lots of online free courses. Photography, videography. Do you have a passion? Ladies, learn to do hair. It's not a bad thing. Learn to bake. Learn to decorate. I've talked about this on a different video on things on non-conventional jobs. Even web design. Think about a way that you can grow yourself. Even if it's just doing a project management course, invest in yourself. Use 10% every month to do something small. If it's free, even better. The other thing that I'll say as well is from the extra 10% save. We talked about savings already, so that's already 70-80% gone from savings and on a high yielding interest, self-improvement, and the extra 20%. What I'll say is you should always have a buffer of money saved for an unforeseen circumstance. For me, it was always my car, and I would think, shit, after working for so many years, why don't I have enough? Some people might say you might get laid off, and sometimes when you're laid off, you might be given some money to survive, but sometimes if you've not worked for long, maybe not. Maybe it might be hard for you to find another job. So people say about 6 months, but that's a bit high, and it's obviously kept with time. You don't just get it immediately. So save at least 10% of your monthly income just to increase that buffer, because you cannot just take a chunk at the same time and do it. You can't. And the extra 10% is for miscellaneous. If you are somebody who likes to look good, you've looked at this nice winter jacket you want, or some leggings, some shoes, we are allowed to. Have said to you guys that this is the soft girl era, and my mantra is that there's no price for punishment. So yes, don't just work and work and work and save and look miserable. If you want to treat yourself once, sometimes for a meal out, by all means, you deserve it. You are deserving of all things nice. So yes, feel free to do that, but that should be budgeted for. So that's what the 10% does. Okay, I've put that on the screen just to recap, and if you want further information, there's some templates we can share offline. What I'm going to say now might look abstract, but try to integrate. Being an immigrant, we really find comfort, and I don't blame us when we do it. We find comfort in conglomerating or forming clusters, just being together with familiar people that we used to seeing, environments that we are used to, or even just having access to the foods that we know. So we tend to live in the same places, in popular places, because maybe we don't want to commute far because we're scared that we'll be in a very non-immigrant area or a non-black area, so we tend to stay in the same, or non-Asian area, because this video is not only for Africans, it's for Asians who come here. They're the biggest continent and there's a lot of them here. So if you've stumbled on this video, why not try to integrate into wherever you go to, right? This is an interesting point. When I came, again talking about myself, my experiences, my uncle lived in a very white village, and I felt like I was in the UK. I felt like I was in England. What I saw was what I used to see in postcards. My dad worked and lived here, so I could relate, and I felt I integrated really quick. And he said to me, make sure that you watch local soaps. But he said, watch local programs, and said, for example, watch EastEnders. If you're in the UK, it's shot in East London. It gives you the accent. It helps you to understand people's cultures. Or Coronation Street, which is in Manchester. Emmerdale is in the Yorkshire Dales. And funny enough, I fell in love with them. Most people who know me know that I loved my soap. soaps, but it helped me to integrate quicker. When I started having kids, I understood what they wanted. Even the food choices. Go out. I love my steaks. I used to just walk in my friends' room, now walk into a pub and have a drink and have a meal by myself, and I felt like I am here. But the funny thing is, when I went at the time, when I came here, my first experience in London, it is one I'll never forget. My boyfriend at the time lived in London. I came and I was like, okay, let me prepare you a meal. You know, I had to show that this girl, I wasn't just a pretty face, I was full housewife, 9 yards. Funny, I was quite young. Anyway, I had to cook. I had food at home. I said, no, I want to go and buy food. So he directed me where to go to. He lived in East London. Very, very cosmopolitan. London in general is very, very cosmopolitan. You can hardly see a region which is really full of just Caucasians, because most people arrive and they end up staying around London. So like, it's a funny joke when you go back home. Where are you living? You say, oh, I'm in Birmingham. Oh, I'm in Luton. Oh, you're in London. No, I'm not. That's funny, but that's true. So around there, I found out a lot of black people, Asians. It was very, very mixed, very, very diverse, very, very culturally beautiful. And I went to this market, I think it was Peckham near New Cross. Bloody hell, excuse my French. I got there and I was walking and I was looking at myself to think that, you know, sometimes you forget where you are. So I was touching my body to remember that I was in the UK. A woman called me. She's like, oh, my sister, come. What do you want? I have pepper. I have... I looked, I said, hi. I called him, I said, dude, it's like you wanted to go to the market. That's London. It was interesting. You know, somebody's like, oh, I have fresh fish, I have dry fish, everything. And she had a baby on her back. And I was just there thinking, because I was from a very white area out of London. So I was just imagining, wow. It was good. I could buy everything I needed, you know. They had all sorts. But I kind of realized that I was happy where I was and I wanted to stick that way, because I had the choice to shut down or not when I wanted to, when I felt like it, as opposed to not having that choice when you live around there, because you don't really integrate. You stay here for years and it feels like you're back. You don't change your way of thinking, because I keep saying travel is education. Meeting different cultures is education. There's 7 continents, so there's a lot of traveling and a lot of learning we need to do. And I always say to myself, the only 3 continents I've not been to is Australia, which I want to go to learn that culture. I've not been to South America. I've not been to Antarctica. Impossible. Every time I travel to a new place, I feel so excited. I get so giddy because I've learned something big, you know. So I feel like if you want to commute and you leave your African country or your Asian country or wherever and you come here, it's best to try to integrate. Saying this, we have moved to a village. I moved to this village almost 8 years ago when we bought our place, because where we bought previously was very, very opposite, and it was a choice. We have our own challenges, like not seeing familiar food, which is fine. Our kids being the, you know, only colored kids around the school for years, it's fine, we can handle it, but it's a choice. So it's just a tip that if you're able to, and also you have more opportunities if you move out, like jobs and just people. They are nice. This myth of, yes, there are people who will not be so good, but do your research. And if you want my help, always feel free to ask. And the other important point is, please be selfish when you initially get here, because again, this is very common across most foreign countries. I think Asia and Africans and South Americans have a lot in common. When we leave, people would always, family, aunties, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins would always ask, which is fine, we're here for greener pastures. There's, you know, deprivation, poverty where we come from, but you need to be selfish to be helpful long term. You need to initially be selfish about yourself. Invest in yourself before you can give back. You cannot give from an empty cup. You need to fill your cup up to be able to be in any way helpful or productive. I'm saying this because if you don't get that discipline up, you'll find yourself working for others. Yes, you'll be a king in your village. You'll be looked at by this person who's making the difference, but at what cost? What about you? Have we thought about that? So I think we need to be careful when we get here, because the needs could be overwhelming, and if you don't put your feet down, literally put your feet down, you find yourself in debt for others, and you'll be that uncle that you don't like to be referred to, or that uncle who everybody thinks is a failure. So please, to succeed for the first 2 years, be careful. You can obviously add a buffer to, if you can leave, you know, the miscellaneous I talked about for 10%, you can You can use that, even if it's £50 or £100, you can use that to help your family if you need to, but have some discipline. Don't get carried away with the stories, because half of them are not really true. People just do that to get you to send them money, and that's the human nature. People tend to be selfish. People tend to exploit. So bear that in mind, okay? Don't get carried, because if things don't work out for you, trust me, they'll not even sympathize. They'll move to the next family member who can help. The last thing I'll talk about early on is, please don't compare. Comparison remains the biggest theft of happiness. When you keep comparing with others, you can never see the good in what you've done, because you see from a very wealthy family back home. Sometimes we had them in my class who never worked. I have friends who come from the same place like I do, and they've never worked. We came literally on the same day, and while we're looking for work to make ends meet, to take care of our living standards, to pay our leftover fees, they spend holidays going on holidays, literally going back home or going to some country to learn a language, and they never worked. But if you compare people like that, either you find yourself like your parents are failures, or you completely give up, or if it's on the other way where they work hard and they make money, you want to work hard, do anything possible to make money, you might find yourself doing things that you would not be proud of, and you might end up, I'm not going to say it here, but you know what I mean. So don't compare. Or you might have somebody who came here, got lucky, got married, with somebody who's a lot more wealthy, didn't have to worry about certain things, and they can afford all the best things that life can offer. If you like your designer gear, for example, they tend to, spend the money on these things, and you're thinking, I want this, I want that. Please don't. Everybody's path is different. Or others who come here after a year or two, they become British, they become Americans, get their green cards, they get their papers. Everybody's destiny is different. So don't compare. Give yourself some grace and start appreciating the little you have. So that was just the last point that I'll mention. I hope that these points have helped. If you want to hear more, feel free to let me know. Leave a comment if I've missed anything out. But as I said, where this has come from, there's a lot more, and this is not exhaustive. I can share in subsequent videos. If you enjoy this, give us a like, and if you like my content, consider subscribing, share, and you guys remain my silent hidden friends, where I share out my heart to Lulus Diaries on how I've been feeling and just trying to give back. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.